Dr. Pat Price, Virginia University of Lynchburg, and native of Lynchburg, Virginia. We have, there's controversy on all sides. They say, well, why is it you don't have a White History Month? Or why don't you have an Irish History Month? Or why don't you have an Italian History Month? And that's part of growing into the beloved community. These groups of people have been in America since America was started. Somehow we have not mastered how to have intentional and genuine enough conversations to get past all of those labels. And here in 2022, we're still trying to get past labels. Now, I totally understand about celebrating Black History Month. One, because I grew up in a segregated elementary school. And so I grew up in one of the poorest neighborhoods in town. So that was a way for our teachers to be able to not circumvent the system, but enhance the educational system and to educate us about our heritage. And so for Black students like me, when I was growing up, that was just great to be able to do that. There are no history books that proclaimed you talked about any significant Black people in a meaningful way. And so, and it wasn't even a month then, it was just a week. And so you had to cram all of that in a week. The rest of it we lived every day. So when I think about that, I think about how long we've been trying to achieve the beloved community. And Martin Luther King Jr. coined the term. And it's a mindset. I think in some ways we come together very nicely in trying to make that attempt. The thing is, we only do it from a reactive mode. I don't think we've really been consistently proactive in the development of the beloved community. Not here in Lynchburg. You think about it, when we have major crises here in our city, just our own internal little things, you see pockets of people around the city coming together for whatever reason. They'll have the difficult conversation sometimes, but the problem is we never finish the conversation. We always try to skirt those issues that would, like you said earlier, raise the temperature. But you have to do that. And I think if I were to ask you, how many genuine conversations or genuine friendships do you have with people out of your immediate circle on a regular basis? How many new friendships have you developed over the course of the last 6 months? And where do you see them going the next 6 months? Will they grow, or will you just leave it on a professional basis, somebody I work with? Will it be you want to go to a movie, you want to go to see the Dance Theater Harlem when it comes to the Academy and just hang out, one evening or something like that? Or is it superficial and we just leave it right where it is? And I think as far as what we have to do in Lynchburg is that we have to continue those conversations. If you don't have the same kind of conversation with people in neighborhoods or people in the community next month, what are you doing? How genuine do you expect it to feel? And how genuine do you think the community is going to be and accept in that conversation? It's going to say, oh, you always do something like that. So, last week was banned books weeks. So, and a friend of mine who's a communications professor actually said, they were saying, oh, you got to ban this book because it's too post PG-13. You can't do that. Or it's too religious, or it's too much adult content, or something like that. And she said, well, wonder how long it's going to be before they ban the Bible. That's comprised of all of those issues that, for whatever reason, we want to avoid, instead of just talking about it and saying, okay. And because you say, Pat, I don't agree with that, it doesn't make you my enemy. It means we don't agree. And some older people in my community use this term a lot. We agree to disagree. And that's it. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion just like I am to mine. But there should be a way that we can express opinions, not necessarily agree on everything, but do those things that would make our community better, all inclusive. It's never going to be all one way or all the other. We're always going to have that. It's not an imbalance. I guess you strike a balance. But sometimes it gets out of balance. And I'll be honest with you, the first thing that comes to mind was when the murder of George Floyd. And we were, as a community, trying to figure out how do we wrap our heads around that and what do we want to say that, as people in Lynchburg, about what we feel, what was going on or what took place. And as much as we probably try to avoid the negative input from other cities, there are always pockets of the community that want to bring in those elements. And while it's important because you learn the whole truth about a specific event, not all of those things are relative to Lynchburg, because we couldn't compare. I could never imagine, and I'm not saying that it has not happened, our law enforcement officers here in the city being put in that type of position. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I think that there have been some events, not to that extreme, that will cause concern or alarm in any conversation. But generally, as a whole, I cannot think of a consistent pattern of something like that happening here in the city of Lynchburg. Everything has been, it's sort of like a spontaneous event. Something happens in a neighborhood, or it doesn't feel right in the school system, or so people band together and come in and say, okay, we need to talk about this. I think city government, people in city government, people in the school systems always say we need more citizen input. We want more citizen input. And I agree that, I think it gives the appearance that we're not taking an interest. But I think we do. I think we trust the people that we put in office. But with that trust comes the responsibility of being able to represent all points of view. And I think that's where we fall short. And I'll tell you what is the most difficult part of working with this generation is the social media aspect. Social media is a two-edged sword. It's really, really good and it's really, really bad. And I think if we're honest, we can see where different forms or different groups of community have been materialized or formed because of social media. But in order for the real conversation to take place, you gotta leave social media and sit face to face. You can't have me texting you back and forth. It sends all kinds of messages, both good and bad. When you're sitting here looking me eye to eye, that's something else. If things get heated, you know when they're heated, and you know what to do to bring that temperature down, just like we were saying. But you can't do that talking on the phone. You can't do that all the time. You can't do it in a Zoom meeting all the time. You can't do it on TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook. You can't do it. You have to have human interaction. And I think that's why humanity exists. It's because we're supposed to interact with people. I think that was God's intention for us, for us to be able to connect on that level. All other things are just tools, but you have to know when to put the tool down. I think that Lynchburg in general is basically a very respectful community, and it's not like us to go all one way, all to the left or all to the right. I think we do a fairly good job of kind of striking that balance that we need to have.